Hello everyone, Vitamin E here. Today I'm going to show you guys a cool little trick that I like to use that allows me to actually warp full-length tracks, like this trance track here. But in order to warp this track, I don't actually have to listen to it or listen to a metronome while I do it. And the way that I do that is just by understanding a few basic concepts of music and how waveforms look. For one, music always happens, well, this kind of music, electronic dance music, always happens in 8-bar or 16-bar phrases. And really, a 16-bar phrase is just two 8-bar phrases. Knowing that and the fact that in electronic dance music, there's usually a kick on the downbeat of every measure. Basically, what you can do is you can kind of determine, based on where the kick drums are, which, as you can see, are these big things right here, based on where the kick drums are, you can actually just warp the track. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the first kick drum, and I'm going to scroll all the way in. And as you can see, Ableton has already put a transient marker here because it's noticed that there is an important event happening here, i.e. a kick drum, but it's actually a little bit off. So what I'm going to do is just find where the kick drum actually hits, right-click, and set 111 here. That's going to set the very first beat of the track as far as Ableton's concerned. Then we're going to right-click again on that same yellow thing that popped up, and we're going to hit warp from here straight. And what that does is Ableton will actually estimate the BPM of the track, and then based on that, it'll warp the track, but not add any warp markers. So as you can see, it's actually just one clean, straight warp. In order for sound quality, and really just generally, in order for everything to work at its best to use less warp markers if it's possible. So if you have a track that's a constant tempo, you really don't want to add extra warp markers. As you can see, Ableton's a little bit off with the BPM of this track. Normally the BPM is going to be a whole number, like 134, 135, 136, not 135.31 or 134.31. So what we're going to do is just scroll in and just kind of look and make sure that the beats actually fall on the markers, meaning the kick drum falls on 9, falls on beat 2 of 9, beat 3, and beat 4, and on 10. As you can see, by 10, it's already starting to drift a little bit. We're just going to hold and drag that back to 10. It should snap if you have your grid on. And as you can see, the tempo is getting closer and closer to actual 135 on the dot. So we're just going to keep scrolling until we find something else that's off. And it doesn't look like much is going to be off. So what we'll do is once everything looks about right, and once your tempo is about this close, you're probably good to go ahead and go to this step, is scroll into the very end of the track and find a kick drum here that doesn't fall on a beat. As you can see, these big blobs are kick drums, and they do not fall on the beats. So what we're going to do is drag the marker to a beat, and as you can see, they all kind of line right up, and there goes our tempo jumping right to 135. But as you can see, this beat is still not right on the warp marker. So what we're going to do is drag this transient marker, and we're going to hold Alt to unsnap from the grid temporarily, and just drag this beat right into place, right on 224. Scroll out, and now you can test your work by jumping quickly through the track. And as you can see, it's going to sound nice and clean because it's nice and perfectly warped. So enough playing with that. Let's get to another track. This one is actually slightly harder to warp. With this track, as you can see, it doesn't start off with a nice uniform kick drum intro. Instead, it starts off with, well, whatever the hell this is. Remember, the idea is to warp it without hearing it. So we're not even sure what that is, but we're not concerned. As you can see, something important happens right here. We're going to estimate that this is probably an important event in the song, or the start of an 8-bar phrase. We're going to zoom in here, right-click right where the first kick lands, hit set 1 here, and again, warp from here straight. And as you can see, it's already estimated the tempo is about 137.99, which is probably actually meaning 138. So we're going to scroll in, not play, but scroll in and find a beat. And it looks like this one's slightly off, so we'll just line that up. Here it is, 138.02. Scroll a little bit further, find another beat. Rinse and repeat. And finally scroll to the very end of the song, find a beat here. And actually, it looks as if the beats are perfectly aligned already at the very end of the song. which normally doesn't happen. Normally you would have to drag it and align this right. But in any event, let's go ahead and play our song and make sure it's all synced up.
Is breathing inside of me.
So now, if we wanted to go ahead and include this in our track, what we would have to do is we would have to first take our marker and move it backwards. And we're going to estimate that this is 16 bars. Now in our case, since this warp marker is here, and it's already assuming the tempo from that, it's already going to be aligned correctly. So we just move it back 16 bars. This is the beginning of our song. What we'll do now, just to set everything straight, is set 1 here. Now this is the first beat. And as you can see, everything else is still nicely aligned. So we can go ahead and play with our song. Now let's move on to a slightly harder track to sync. This one, as you can see, doesn't start with anything rhythmic in the intro. It's just pads if you were to listen to it. But of course, remember the idea is to do this without listening to it. So let's not be concerned about that. Instead, let's scroll into where the first significant event happens. As you can see, this slow, goopy little thing turns into a nice, chiseled out, well, what I can tell from experience is a rhythmic part of the song. More than likely 4/4 kick drums. So what we're going to do is scroll in on the very first kick drum here. And I can't quite tell where it lands, but I'm going to assume it's right about there. We'll set 1 there. And again, warp from here straight. Zoom in. And that's slightly off. 8.01. Probably actually 138. Let's see. .0. And just do the same thing at the very end of the song. As you can see, it's slightly off here. And the reason for that is that the other warp markers were in pretty crowded parts of the song. So it was actually hard for Ableton, or my eyes actually with experience, to tell where the kick drum landed when it's going through a really bass-heavy passage. But now that we've aligned it at the end of the song and the tempo is right at 138, chances are that's correct. So let's go ahead and flip through the song and see if that's right. As you can see, that sounds about right. Now, let's say we wanted to also include this intro. Let's go ahead and listen to it and just see what it is. And we're going to assume that that intro is at the same tempo as the rest of the song, which is, as you can see, 138. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go here and find the very first hit of this. And we're going to align this to where it's at 138. Now it actually looks like it was already at 138. Probably because the rest of the song is correct. But let's make sure this is right. So now let's listen to our intro. So folks, there you have it. This is my power warping technique. Now imagine the possibilities that open up when you learn how to use this technique quickly and effectively. If you have a wireless internet connection, you could take requests, download tracks, and beat match them in seconds right in the middle of your set. Imagine being able to take any request from any party goer. You'd be everyone's favorite DJ without ever even having to plan your set. So I hope this has helped you out. If it has, please subscribe or rate it well and check back here for more videos.